Hi everyone, I hope that you're really doing well. I think I have never shared with you about my research topics, research interest, my dissertation topic. So today I'd like to share with you about one of my presentations. It is about urban agritecture. The word agritecture is a combination between agri from agriculture and tecture from architecture. It means with building integrated agricultural forms, and I think it is one of the most important topics, not only for our near future, for our urban agricultural development, for the urbanization, but also for the climate change and also the population growth. So let's have a look. Have fun.
Yeah, so I would like to share my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Hey, yeah.
Okay, thank you, dear Sigrun, for your nice, kind introduction, and thank you for the team to invite me to our last China lunch for this semester. My name is Hemeng Zhou. So today's topic is urban agritecture, a solution or vision for the future. When we look at what's happening with the climate crisis right now, for example, the fires in Australia, the storms in the US, the floods in Europe, and the droughts in Asia, and of course everywhere else, also in Europe, we have been through a lot for the last decades, and cities are increasingly being affected by acute shocks amplified by climate change and chronic stresses resulting from longer-term projected climate change or uncontrolled urban growth. And all of the above mentioned factors lead to harvest loss and area loss. In the last 40 years alone, we've lost 30% of all of our arable farmland. Yes. So there's no greater cause of climate harm than agriculture. Agriculture is the largest consumer of resources globally. 70% of the world's water goes to ag every year, according to OECD's research, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And even more so than urbanization, industrial agriculture is the major driver of permanent forest loss. According to IPCC's research, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, about 23% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. And this picture shows the risk of pesticide pollution at the same time at a global scale. We use about 6 billion pounds, equals 2.7 million tons of pesticides annually across the world. You can see, north part of North America, Latin America, here Europe, and also South Asia has been very heavily polluted by pesticides, actually. And meanwhile, the global population growth has never stopped. According to the data from UN, till 2050, there will be another about 2 billion more people in the world, and 70% of them will be living in urban area. And the hotspots are Asia and here in Africa. And urban areas consume as much as 80% of the energy produced worldwide and account for over 70% of energy-related global greenhouse gases. And both these figures are expected to rise because the global population are increasing still. And unfortunately, we are living somehow unsustainably. Here is a picture show the country overshoot day. For this year. So when would Earth overshoot day land if the world's population lived like, for example, German, then it would have been the 4th of May this year. If lived like Chinese, then it would have been the 2nd of June. So basically, after 5 or 6 months, we have overshoot all the energies or resources that the Earth has produced for this year. So it is not that sustainable. And the factors mentioned above, such as more cities, more urbanization, the increasing world population, and less land resources, and the unsustainability of our energy consumption and lifestyle, encourage and urge the necessity of bringing food directly to the cities, the food production. And the topic has become more and more popular, which is urban agriculture. And here I would like to introduce today like a small branch of urban agriculture. Some of you, or someone might call it a niche market, while the others might consider it as a future solution. So the word agritecture is actually a combination between agri from agriculture and tecture from architecture. And agritecture can be categorized as, outdoor forms such as rooftop farms, balcony farms, or facade farms, as well as indoor forms such as roof greenhouses, indoor farms, and vertical farms. Perhaps not everyone here is clear what is a vertical farm. This concept has actually existed quite a long time, actually since 600 BC, from the ancient era of hanging gardens of Babylon. And in 1915, a book entitled Vertical Farming was written by Gilbert Ellis Bailey. And during the 1980s, vertical farming was proposed by Aka Olson as a means of producing vegetables in cities. And in 1999, Professor Dixon Dispameer at the Columbia University has redefined the concept. So vertical farm, according to his definition, is a sustainable urban indoor multi-story agricultural system that produces crops, fish, poultry, eggs, etc. And vertical farms can be defined as indoor farms with multiple layers. So indoor farm is single layer, vertical farm is multiple layers. That's the difference. And let's have a deeper look at the different forms. The first form is the outdoor forms, rooftop farms. The left picture shows the Brooklyn Grange from New York. Brooklyn Grange is the world's largest rooftop soil farms. It runs since May of 2010, and with over 10,000 square meters of rooftops under cultivation in the two farms, Brooklyn Grange produces over 22,500 kilograms of vegetables every year to restaurants, CSA members, CSA is community supported agriculture members, and public via weekly farm stands. And the farm hosts different events, for example, visits, workshops, events and educational programming, and provides urban farming and green roof consulting and installation services to clients worldwide, and partners with numerous nonprofit organizations throughout New York to promote healthy and strong local communities. And at the same time, Brooklyn Grange also supplies yoga classes, dinners, parties, and wedding ceremonies on the top of the roof. And besides, they also keep egg-laying hens and have launched, a commercial apiary for honeybees. And the farm cooperates with nonprofit partner called City Growers for educational program, and they host over 17,000 New York City youth each season for educational visits or tours till now. And the right one is a picture taken by me. It is a rooftop farm on top of a shopping mall in Qibao district in Shanghai. And you can see the difference. The left one is completely soil-based, and the right one is using these planting boxes. This is because that China, or the most cities in China, have experienced, a very rapid urbanization phase, and the quality of the industrial or shopping mall buildings is not always so good as the quality of the industrial buildings in Western countries. So in order not to harm the main walls or the architectural structure of the shopping mall, planting boxes are more often used in Shanghai, and it is much less heavier. And the second form is, where am I? Okay. Yeah, the second form is the facade farms. The left picture shows a design of a facade farm from the architecture office called Keys Cathcart in New York. They have actually accomplished this design since the very beginning of the century. And the right one is from design of from Bright Agrotech, and you can see, or perhaps you might have not seen so many facade farms. Instead, you might have seen many facade screenings. That is because of the maintenance costs and also the energy that the facade farms will be using. And of course, after the harvesting, the facade might not look that beautiful. It is bold, so it is still under development. And the third outdoor form is the balcony or terrace farms. It is mainly family-based, and the right picture, which is not with so good quality has taken by me, is a terrace farm from Coca-Cola restaurant directly in our Oriental Pearl TV tower, like one of the most representative architecture buildings in Shanghai. And this is basically the backyard of it. And the Coca-Cola restaurant have been using this showcase, and also they use the harvesting for cooking. And yeah, in terms of the indoor forms, the first one is the rooftop greenhouses. It can be a glass or poly greenhouse, and it can also be low-tech plastic hoop house. And normally it is single layer indoor, for farming, and the sunlight will be used. And here they are using this hydroponic system. And this is a farm on top of a supermarket called Gotham Green in New York. About that technology, I will introduce in a few volumes later. And the second indoor form is indoor farms. The left one is a kind of zip tower farm. It's like a tower, and the plant's roots are planted horizontally in it. Mostly it is for herbs and some species of salads. And the right one is the indoor farm, soil-based, in the center of Shanghai in a shopping mall called K11. And the restaurant nearby or close to it uses the harvest, and also you can see perhaps a little bit, they also are planting the mushrooms in their boxes. They use this to cook. And the last form is the vertical farms. As you can see at the very beginning, vertical farms have been used or designed this fancy designs mainly for architecture competitions, etc. And with the time, vertical farms have been developed in different directions. So nowadays there are not only these kind of fancy designs, but also the normal vertical farms in reconstructed buildings like residential buildings or malls or industrial buildings. And the indoor agriculture uses the technology, mostly hydroponics. It means to grow plants in liquid nutrient solution instead of soil. And the advantages for this are you can grow crops where soil is not suitable, and there is more control for it. For example, control for nutrient precisely, so there's no so much waste. And the growth rate is faster because plants can grow healthier and this control and reach maturity faster. And it increases crop yields because it can be multi-layer, and it uses less water because 90 to 95% of the water can be recycled in this system. And it reduces, therefore, soil-related diseases and insects. And there is no weeding. But of course, there are also challenges in this system. First of all, the investment is higher than traditional soil-based farming, and some diseases can spread pretty rapidly in this nutrient solution. Especially formulated soluble nutrient must always be used in this water, and flower pollination could be very difficult. And there are basically two categories for this hydroponic system. The first one is the passive system, which does not require any outside energy input from a pump or a fan, for example, like weak system, ebb and flow, aka flood and drain system, or nutrient firm technique, NFT here. And the other system is the active system, which does need outside energy input from a pump or fan. For example, aeroponic system, aquaponic system, deep water culture, and this drip system. And yeah, talking about aeroponic system, it means it also is a kind of hydroponic, but the plant's roots stay in the air, and the nutrient solution will be sprayed out in the air as a mist. And the aquaponic system is actually a combination between this hydroponic system and a fish tank. So basically, the feces of the fish can be pumped into the hydroponic system as nutrient, and the roots of the plants can filter and clean the water. And another technology used here is the lighting system, mostly LEDs. Sometimes you might see, pinky light from some buildings or apartments, which is the red and the blue light, because blue wavelengths from LED lights change the concentration of nutritionally important metabolites in high value specialty crops, meaning that by an optimum amount of exposure to blue wavelengths would lead to higher productivity of these crops. And I think one of the biggest barriers for these hydroponic systems is that not every species of crops can, be suited in this system. There are some kind of leafy greens very suitable for this, such as kale, collard greens, bok choy or tatsoi, etc., etc. And there are some species of herbs like rosemary, mint, thyme, basil that can grow in the system pretty quickly and efficiently, and also some fruit crops like strawberries, cucumbers, peppers, chilies, and even tomatoes. Yeah, but still, the stable food such as rice or potatoes cannot, be planted in this hydroponic system, so it is still under development. And the advantages of agritecture is that, first of all, it is good for the planet. Why this? It reduces carbon emissions by incorporating renewable energy systems and sustainable practices such as, composting and rainwater harvesting. And it needs extra portion of CO2. So, the normal, conventional farming, the plants are growing like they can, based on the portion of CO2 in the air, based on the water, on the oxygen, etc. And here, to maximize the growth, this photosynthesis process has to happen based on enough CO2 portion. So basically, extra portion of CO2 will be pumped into the house. And it also saves land and soil and other resources, because it uses precise water and nutrition supply, and most of them can be recycled. And it reduces carbon footprint from food miles and also food waste from transportation and storage. Perhaps most of you have heard data like 50% of the fresh produce like salads and herbs have to be thrown away after the long distance transportation because their storage period is so short. And since agriculture is directly located in urban areas, there is no much transportation time. So the 50% of the food that has been thrown away can be sold in the supermarket. And secondly, it is good for people. It is fresh produce, it is organic, also called pesticide-free. It is local and nutritious. So organic or pesticide-free, why are they two terms? It is because, you know, the organic certification, the standard for this has been written very early, and the conventional farmers, they would not like to share their market because it will harm their profit. So they demonstrate that the organic certification can only be given for soil-based produce. And this hydroponics does not use soil in it, so it can only be certified as pesticides-free. And why is local and nutritious so important? So one example shows in my interviews with some New Yorkers that they, not only one interview, but some of them demonstrate that the apples, for example, in the supermarkets in New York, they are basically only sugar and water. It is because that most of them have been stored for 1 or 2 years. So during this storage period, the nutrition has been lost. You know, all of our bodies need vitamins or minerals, and that has been lost slowly. And at the end, you buy a beautiful apple, but it's just an apple with sugar and water without so much nutrition. So it's pretty sad. And the third one is that it is pretty good to cities. It increases cities' resilience and accords with different concepts like resilient cities or smart cities. It is good for food safety because it is pesticide-free, also called organic. And it enhances food security by reducing reliance on external food sources. You know, it provides an alternative means of food production that is less susceptible to extreme weather events and resource limitations, and it fosters self-sufficiency by enabling communities to grow their food on their own. And besides, it contributes to biodiversity conservation within urban environments, especially the outdoor forms of the agritecture, for example, for bees. And at the same time, it supplies green jobs and educational opportunities. Like the Brooklyn Grange has introduced, like each season, they hold 17,000 New York city youths for these educational programs, right? And for the buildings, it provides natural cooling systems, which is you know, naturally and pretty good to the climate, and it can supply positive public space and mentally improve the public relations in the neighborhoods. And yeah, according to Alice's research, at the theoretical example, rooftop service of solar power potential indicated that New York City has sufficient rooftop real estate to meet 100% of the fresh vegetable demand for the city's entire population. But as we all know, not 100% of the New York rooftops has been, you know, applied or converted to rooftop farming or greening. So it is a theoretical example. And all the underlined points are directly related to climate change. And of course, there are some challenges of this agriculture. You know, some of the forms need high investments, especially for technology and maintenance. Yeah, especially the indoor agricultural forms. Some of them requires equipment, especially the indoor agricultural forms, and some of them require energy for the need for example, electricity to replace the sun for LED systems or for cooling systems or heating systems. And there has, of course, been a lot of debates about using renewable energy in the system. But as we all know, renewable energy till today has still not played a very crucial role in our energy system. It might be, you know, 10 or 20-ish% of our whole energy consumption, but still not that much. So till now, you might already have an impression, okay, the indoor agricultural forms, you don't know if it's sustainable or not. So in this case, I would like to use the 3 pillars according to IUCN's definition to test the sustainability of agritecture. And the 3 pillars are economy, environment, and society. And my conceptual framework is based on the existing research and literature, such as Z-Farm project, also called Zero Agri Farming, also funded by BMBF. What is that? Federal Ministry for Education and Research. And besides, I have researched different concepts, such as BIA, building integrated agriculture, CEA, control environment agriculture, food factory, and also from landscape planning perspective or urban planning perspective, other concepts such as edible cities, carrot cities, sponge cities, etc. And at the same time, I have collected articles about different forms of agritecture, such as vertical farms, rooftop greenhouses for rooftop farms, etc. And the research gap is that it lacks research about the agritecture and also the sustainability of agritecture, especially in China. So my research questions are, how is the social, economic, and ecological sustainability of agritecture? If and in which way can agritecture be sustainably developed in the future? And I used a mixed method. I'm doing basically an exploratory research because there's not so much data and it's still, like a future research. And I try to do a comparative study. So first of all, I use the quantitative research method and have collected 712 effective surveys out of 941 with 31 questions to test the so to say potential consumers' social acceptance of indoor agriculture in Shanghai. So I dive a little bit into the topic, and instead of the whole agritecture system, I tested only the indoor agriculture because the survey, sometimes for some questions the survey cannot give an answer for all the 6 different forms of agritecture, and outdoor forms like rooftop farms, etc., have been proved to be socially acceptable based on other researches. So here I tested the indoor agriculture forms, and I have analyzed the surveys with SPSS and Stata. And after that, I used the qualitative research method and have collected 20 expert interviews in each city in Shanghai and New York with researchers and practitioners. And they mainly come from different majors, such as agriculture, sociology, economy, urban planning, urban ecology, etc., etc. And some of them are the CEOs or farmers directly from vertical farms, indoor farms, or some plant machine companies. And after the collection, I transcribed and coded for the interviews with Max QDA. So somebody might ask, why Shanghai and New York? I think they have a lot of similarities. First of all, they both play a very crucial role, internationally and nationally, from economic, political, cultural, social perspectives. And they both have experienced a rapid urbanization period, and they both are basically food deserts. So I think it might be very interesting to make a comparison between, eastern and western cities. And within the urban area, I have accomplished several, case studies. This is my research scope. I will not tell more details about it. And let's directly look at the results. Yeah, sorry, I have to pack all the results into one folio to compare, so it looks a little bit too full. Yeah, first of all, the results of the surveys to test the potential consumers' social acceptance. So general acceptance of the indoor agriculture was pretty high. 84% accepted this concept. And the surveys demonstrated that there has been very high demand for multi-functionality, and the market was mature, and they prefer actually governmental investors. I think it has also something to do, with the food safety history in China, that there has been a lot of food safety problems. So somehow they lost the trust with some private companies. Perhaps they also don't have so much trust with the government, but they prefer governmental investors because that could be safer. And all of the technologies have been accepted, but the most acceptable one is aquaponics. I think this has something to do with the long-term aquaponic traditions in South China. Because of its advantageous geographical location, Shanghai citizens have more access to, for example, seafood or freshwater fishes, as well as leafy greens in comparison to North Chinese. And a concept called the mulberry fish pond originated also from the Pearl River Delta region. It comprises a small ecosystems and makes full use of the deep fish ponds. So the dug out soil is laid around the pond so that its depth is suitable for the planting of mulberry trees around, and the leaves of the trees are then utilized to feed the silkworms, and the feces of the silkworms are in turn used to feed the fish in the pond. So it's a closed ecosystem, and this ecosystem efficiently produces not only silk, but also mulberries and fish. And it provides, of course, a higher level of economic value. And here you can see the demographic factors mostly associated with younger age or lower income and gender, with more women more likely to accept this concept. And men tended to accept the high technology more, while the women or female surveyed tended to accept or buy multiple products in the vertical farms. And the interview results of the potential stakeholders in Shanghai show a pretty positive feedback to social sustainability and ecological sustainability. Here, they also demonstrated the importance of multifunctionality and the product quality, and they consider this agritecture as a trust reconstruction tool between the farmers and the consumers. But in terms of the economic sustainability, they were pretty concerned. They thought that agritecture is still in its starting phase, and there has not been so many realized projects and not so many long-term sustainability researches. And also in comparison to conventional farms, the investment of agritecture is high, and therefore the profitability is low. And if it is used only for productivity, then it is controversial to have participation function, by emphasizing this multifunctionality, because it will interrupt the productivity in the farms. And in comparison or in contrast, the New York interviewees show pretty positive opinions towards not only social, but also economic and ecological sustainability. They thought that the market was mature, and they thought that the profitability was there. And both of the stakeholders in both cities prefer a free market, but they would like to have more cooperation with the government. And, I'm sorry, I think my mouse is playing on its own game. And it lacks data sharing, according to the interviewees in New York. So as you can see, I think the biggest difference lies on this economic sustainability. In New York, it's positive. In Shanghai, it's negative. I think this has a lot to do with, the background, differences, such as, cultural differences or this political system difference. In Shanghai or in China generally, it's a top-down system. So it's if the policy support lacks, then it is very hard for the private companies or ventures to get through the market or get into the market. And then different cultures, especially different eating cultures. Western countries are used to salads or herbs, and Chinese don't. They cook their vegetables, and the salads are, good, but it is not in their daily menus. So yeah, let's have a deeper look at the economic sustainability, because this is, skeptical according to the result of my research. So there has been some of the researches about this. For example, in 2012, Chiaritan has accomplished one of the first studies about financial and methodological feasibility of vertical farming. And then Banerjee in 2014 has stated how a 37-floor vertical farm can obtain a population of 15,000 with a daily demand of 2,000 calories. And in 2016, Kozai, New, and Takagaki has stated the light of a vertical farm lit by artificial light accounts for 70 to 80% of the total electricity costs, which makes it one of the most important aspects for the profitability. And there has been a lot of or some of vertical farming's researches about the average cost and productivity. But still, the research, according to Lohmann, came out that it is still very risky to start a vertical farm, and it is no quick money. Yeah, so this is basically the literature on it. There's not so much, as you can see. So here I would like to introduce a last study about Zip Farm in Denver, in Colorado, according to Trimble's research. So he has somehow got the data of this farm, which is very, very a lot of value, and basically he has calculated the investment and the profitability. So first category is, of course, the investment costs, the pricing for this zip tower system. The farm uses 1,248 tower structure, and it will cost, it has costed like $566,000. And if, these towers cannot be produced locally, if some of the other farms have to import it, then there will be also extra import costs or depreciation costs. And then there will be property costs based on the location of the farm. If it is urban, suburban, or rural, in this case, there's no property cost because it's their land. And then there comes the input costs, and this is the huge category. As you can see, there is, electricity here, and it costs 92,000 per year. And so to process cheaper electricity is a major cost advantage actually for an indoor farm, and then the labor, this kind of farm basically needs, one manager plus 2 full-time farm hands-on, and it will cost $93,000 per year. And then comes the cost of water, extra portion of CO2, fertilizer, seedling, and essential elements. And they basically develop a kind of basket with different species of plants, and the cost of it is $5.47, and they sell it at a price of $19.93. So for each basket, they have the profit for about 14.5 US dollars. And let's directly look at the internal rate of return. So all in all, the initial investment for this Denver vertical farm was 2.45 million US dollars, and the annual gain was 473,000 US dollars. And more or less, the system can be used for 10 years. So the IRR is 14.17%. And among all the cost components, the labor and the electricity, as you can see here, has played a crucial role. So in this case, how to reduce these both costs can be very decisive for the profitability for such a farm. So here I would like to give some development strategies. I think, first of all, the selection of cities is very important. I think based on the above mentioned, situation and current status, this system, or especially the indoor agricultural system, is more suitable for vulnerable cities and also vulnerable food systems. And the most vulnerable cities are those in arid or water-stressed countries, island states, and less developed countries, as well as coastal or low-lying cities. And the electricity as well as the labor costs would be also decisive for the profitability. And to have governmental investors or to have private founders or investors can push the development of agriculture into two totally different ways. And the target group should also be very clear. And also in terms of the property cost, if it is located urban or rural, it is also very important, right? Because the property cost might be very high. For example, where I am living, I'm renting this apartment, but where I'm living in the center of Shanghai, the residential building costs now like over 12,000 euros per square meter. So to buy a farm here and to sell salads by, getting back the investment might be pretty difficult. And based on the current data, the biggest vertical farms have received, most funding globally, and they have gained access and capabilities to the best productive and cost-efficient technologies and possess the advantage of scalability. But there's also the problem because, the profit or economic sustainability and also the strategies, how they have developed this whole farm, these are the key factors. So that is why they are unwilling to share their data till its fullest. So it makes the development of this branch still very hard because the technology cannot be copied from, the advanced developed farms. But in comparison to that, the small scale farms have been proved to be pretty economically sustainable till today. So I think it is a good idea to start just from a small scale. And also, the expected increase in innovative usage, such, of rainwater or robotics, automation, AI, humidity and air temperature controls, utilization of efficient solar panels, and, more efficient LED lights have the potential to increase productivity while decreasing the costs. Okay, so let's wrap up. I think with the issues of feeding people or preventing malnourishment and growing urban concentration and also growing environmental concerns, I believe that either changes to the current traditional farming methods or the introduction of new farming methods must be implemented nowadays. And in this context, agriculture has great potential, but as you can see, also great challenges, mainly lies on the economic sustainability. Until now, it cannot stop or hinder the climate change, but can be, a climate change and disaster risk reduction strategy. And just like all the other innovations, at the very beginning, at the start of the innovation, wow, this idea is cool, and everybody comes into the market, and there will be a very rapid development phase till its maximal expectation, and then it goes down. The visibility goes down. Oh, I'm sorry, this mouse is really a little bit, and till its foamy low point. And after that, it will, continue in this steady state growth till its substantial productive peak. And agritecture, especially indoor agricultural forms, is here. So it is still, it has a long way to go. And at the same time, it brings, the insight to architecture and urban design. For example, especially for this Corona or post-Corona time, imagine you have your own balcony farm or indoor farm at home during the lockdown. You might perhaps have been more happier. So it is also good for, green architecture design. And yeah, it requires a systematic development, in my opinion, with other forms of urban agriculture together to support the local and also the general food security. And it requires systematic development with other greening systems and farming methods to fight against climate change. And just a last tip here, global market research firms report vertical farming market value of $2.23 billion in 2018 and predict $12.7 billion in 2026. And it will still continue growing. So if some of you find this concept interested, or if you would like to contribute to fighting climate change or funding something, I think that this might be a good startup idea for you. Okay, thank you. I think that's it from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Romang. Very, very interesting. And I'm a fan of this, as you know, but I'm asking myself how much is the scale? So is it only a nice idea for some entrepreneurs here, maybe the young students, and they would like to innovate, or is it really contributing to food security in the city? And I know that Guo Haixin is doing research on this as well. All the empty buildings in China, right, maybe can be used for this indoor farming.
Yeah.
It looks nice. It looks great. It sounds efficient. But is it really something that politicians would follow? Or, I mean, you showed all the advantages and challenges. So I'm asking myself, is it only a fancy idea for people who have time to consider to do this, or is it really contributing on a larger scale to food security?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think, first of all, also the data has shown actually this concept has been, supported financially also by a lot of politicals or politicians or even government. One of the most famous farms or indoor farms in Berlin is called, I think, InFarm, and it is or it has been supported at the very beginning by the German aerospace office. So the German government has, seen the possibility by using these technologies, for example, for Mars